Picture this. You are walking through a city you've known since childhood. Same streets, same corners, same quiet cafe where the light always falls in the afternoon like a soft confession. You don't have to think about turning left or right. Your feet know, your body knows, your mind, half asleep, is already elsewhere planning, replaying, worrying, reaching. And then, one day, you look up and realize the city has changed. Or maybe it hasn't. Maybe you have. Either way, you're lost in the most familiar place on earth. That is the paradox of being human. We can be free and trapped in the same breath. We can be running toward life while slowly backing away from it. The most dangerous prisons are not made of iron. They are made of habits that feel like home, thoughts that feel like truth, desires that feel like destiny. In ancient stories, traps were visible. A pit hidden with leaves, a snare in the forest, a siren song from the rocks. You could tell yourself, if I stay sharp, I'll avoid it. But modern traps are psychological. They don't lunge from the shadows. They slip into your daily coffee, your to-do list, your relationships, your identity. They wear the disguise of normalcy. Sometimes they wear your face. And what makes them cruel is their timing. You don't notice them until they've already done their quiet work, until years have passed, and you have a life that looks fine from the outside, but feels oddly smaller on the inside, until you wake up one morning and realize you've been living in a room you never chose, furnished by expectations you never agreed to. So tonight, let's name 5 of these invisible nets, not to frighten you, but to free you. Because the moment a trap becomes visible, it loses half its power. Awareness is not a hammer. It is a light, and light doesn't fight darkness. It simply reveals what was there all along. As we move through these 5, don't listen like a student collecting facts. Listen like someone overhearing their own inner life. Let each idea pass through you the way water passes through a sieve, leaving behind what is true for you. You'll probably recognize all 5 traps. The question is not whether they exist in your life. The question is where they are already tightening. We'll start with the most intimate one. The one most people defend with their last breath because it feels like safety. The trap of identity. The strange way we become loyal to a version of ourselves that once helped us survive and then quietly begins to suffocate us. Think of identity like a photograph you carry in your wallet. At first, it's useful. It helps you remember. It helps others recognize you. But imagine spending your entire life trying to match that photo, to keep your face frozen in the same expression, the same age, the same story. Eventually, the photo isn't a memory, it's a commandment. And that is where we begin. Identity is the name we give to the river after we've tried to stop it long enough to take a picture. When you were young, you learned to say I am before you learned to say I feel. We all did. I am the quiet one. I am the responsible one. I am the funny one. I am the one who never needs help early on. These are not philosophies. They're survival strategies. A child in chaos becomes the peacemaker. A child who isn't seen becomes the achiever. A child who is hurt becomes the helper. We build a self the way a small house is built in a storm. Fast, practical, meant to keep the rain out. And for a while, it works. Your identity gives you a script. It offers you a place in the play. It tells you how to behave when the world is confusing. It makes life legible. People know where to put you, and you know where to stand. But then something subtle happens. The script becomes a cage. Because the world doesn't stay the same, you don't stay the same. Yet identity tends to fossilize. It makes a shrine out of what was once a tool. You start protecting who you think you are, even when it's outgrown you. The strong one can't cry. The nice one can't say no. The independent one can't lean on anyone. The successful one can't pause. It's like wearing armor you needed in one war, and then forgetting to take it off when the war ended. Here's the trap. Identity doesn't announce itself as a prison. It announces itself as truth. It says, this is just who I am. And anything that threatens that sentence feels like danger. Not because it is danger, but because the ego interprets change as annihilation. So you keep choosing the predictable version of yourself over the living version. You stay in the job because I'm not a quitter. You stay in the relationship because I'm loyal. You don't try the thing you secretly want because I'm not that kind of person. The identity cage is not a locked door. It's a door you stop seeing. It vanishes into certainty. A friend of mine once told me a story about his grandfather. The man worked as a tailor for 40 years, every morning. Same routine, scissors, thread, measured silence. When he retired, his family expected him to rest. Instead, he became restless, sharp, almost angry. One day my friend found him in the garage, learning to paint. Terrible paintings at first, wild colors, clumsy hands. The family laughed gently. "Since when do you paint?" they asked. The grandfather didn't look up. "Since I remembered I'm not only a tailor," he said. That sentence is a key. You are not only what you've been. You are not only what people expect. You are not only the story that got you here. Identity is supposed to be a coat, not your skin. Warm when needed, removed when it's time to feel the air. So ask yourself, quietly, which version of you are you loyal to? And is that loyalty love or fear dressed in familiar clothes? Because the moment you loosen identity's grip, another trap becomes visible. You notice how much of your life is spent trying to control what cannot be controlled, and you call it responsibility. Once identity starts to soften, you can feel it, the raw wind of uncertainty, and almost immediately the mind reaches for a lever, something to pull, something to manage, something to steady the world. Like a sailor who believes the ocean will calm if he clenches his fists hard enough. This is the control mirage, the quiet belief that if you worry enough, plan enough, anticipate enough, you will finally be safe. Notice how noble it sounds. I'm just being responsible. I'm thinking ahead. If I don't handle this, who will? Control rarely arrives wearing the mask of tyranny. It arrives wearing the mask of care. That's why it slips past our defenses. But there's a difference between steering your life and trying to own the weather. Real agency is humble. It says, here is what I can do, and here is what I can't. The control mirage is arrogant in the most anxious way. It says, everything is my job. Everything is my fault. Everything is on me. And beneath that arrogance is fear of chaos, fear of disappointment, fear of being hurt again by something you didn't see coming. So we become managers not only of our schedules, but of people. We edit ourselves so others won't leave. We rehearse conversations in our heads so we won't be surprised. We try to predict the mood of a partner, the reaction of a boss, the future of the economy, the trajectory of our bodies, the timing of happiness. And when prediction fails, as it always does, we double down. More planning, more checking, more tension, like tightening a knot that only strangles you faster. A woman I once met described her life as a spreadsheet. Every hour accounted for, every outcome optimized, every risk minimized. It was impressive. She was impressive. Yet when she spoke, her eyes carried a kind of tired glitter. The way a candle looks right before it goes out. I don't know how to relax, she admitted. If I stop managing, everything falls apart. But listen to the hidden sentence there. If I stop controlling, the world will punish me. Control addiction is often a trauma response. Somewhere along the way, you learned that unpredictability equals pain. So you built a cockpit. Buttons, screens, alarms. You became the pilot of everyone's emotions and every possible future. Yet the irony is brutal. The more you try to control life, the smaller life becomes. You don't live in reality anymore. You live in a simulation of what might go wrong. And time, real time, unrepeatable time, keeps passing while you stand. Guard at the gates of the imaginary. Think of holding sand in your palm. The tighter your grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. Control is like that. It promises security, but delivers erosion. So what do? We don't abandon responsibility. We abandon the fantasy of omnipotence. We learn the art of doing our part. The farmer plants, waters, weeds, but he does not yell at the sky for rain. He does not berate the seed for growing slowly. He cooperates with what is larger than him. Ask yourself, where are you trying to make life obey you instead of meeting life honestly? Where has anxiety disguised itself as duty? Because once you see the control mirage, another hunger reveals itself, a hunger for approval, for being witnessed, for borrowed certainty through other people's eyes. There's a moment, often quiet, when you realize control can't protect you. The world is still wild. People still leave. Plans still break. Your body still changes without asking permission. And in that moment, the mind reaches for another kind of safety, not safety through steering life, but safety through being held inside someone else's gaze. This is the validation hunger, living on borrowed eyes until you forget your own. It starts innocently. We are social creatures. We need love. We need to belong. A child looks to a parent's face the way a plant looks to the sun. Am I okay? Am I safe? Do I matter? The nod or frown becomes a weather report for the soul. But if you don't outgrow that dependence, if you never learn to generate your own inner yes, you begin to outsource your worth. Slowly at first, then completely. You check the room. Before you check yourself, you read your value in likes, in praise, in the subtle lean of someone's attention. If they approve, you breathe. If they don't, you shrink. The trap is subtle because validation feels like love. And sometimes it is. But when love becomes a mirror you can't live without, it stops being love and becomes a leash. Look at how modern life is designed. We carry little machines that measure our visibility. How many people saw me? How many reacted? How many answered? The numbers are not evil, but the hunger they can awaken is ancient. See me, so I know I exist. So we perform. We cure it. We become experts at being palatable. We learn the choreography of acceptable opinions, acceptable emotions, acceptable dreams. We say yes to preserve belonging and call it kindness. We laugh at jokes we don't find funny. We become the version of ourselves that gets invited back. But here's the price. The more you live for approval, the more you lose touch with the quiet compass inside you. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What will they want me to want?" Over time, you can become famous in your own life and still feel like a stranger at home in your body. A man once told me about his career choice. He was brilliant at what he did, admired, promoted, applauded. Yet every promotion felt less like joy and more like a debt coming due. "I don't know if I chose this," he said, "or if I just kept choosing what made people proud." He wasn't lazy or confused. He was starving in a room full of compliments. Validation hunger is like eating sugar when you need water. It spikes you. It empties you. It makes you dependent on the next dose. So ask yourself, gently, if nobody clapped, if nobody noticed, if nobody approved, what would still feel true to you? What would you still do when no one is watching? What part of your life is yours only when it is invisible? Because as you begin to answer those questions, you may discover something even more unsettling. Some pains you keep returning to are not accidents. They are familiar homes you haven't dared to leave. And that is the next trap. There's a peculiar comfort in misery you can predict. Not comfort in the pain itself. Pain is pain, but comfort in its shape, its timing, its storyline. The mind, like a tired traveler, would rather sleep in a familiar cave than risk the strange open field at night, even if the cave is cold, even if something inside it keeps biting you. At least you know where the teeth are. This is the familiar pain loop, choosing the known over the true. If you look closely, you'll see it everywhere. The same kind of relationship, different face. The same argument, different year. The same promise to change, followed by the same slow returning. The same inner monologue that says you're behind, you're not enough, you'll mess it up anyway. We don't just fall into these loops. We orbit them. We protect them. Sometimes we even call them my type, my luck, my personality. But what we're often protecting is not happiness, it's predictability. Because uncertainty, real uncertainty, is the ego's nightmare. A new path means a new self. A new self means the old one has to die. Not physically, psychologically. And that kind of death feels like free fall. So the mind negotiates. Better the devil I know. Better the loneliness I can map. Better the job that drains me but doesn't surprise me. Better the anxiety I'm fluent in than the peace I don't understand yet. You can see how this works in love. Someone grows up with emotional distance, and later they find themselves magnetically drawn to distant partners. They don't say, "I like distance." They say, "I like the challenge," or "it's complicated." But underneath, the nervous system is choosing what it recognizes. It's not chasing love. It's reenacting an old climate. You can see it in work. You stay in a role that stifles you because you know how to suffer there. You've built an identity round enduring. The unknown job might be better, But it might also reveal you don't know who you are without the struggle, so you stay. You can see it in self-talk. Some people are so used to being harsh with themselves that kindness feels suspicious, like a stranger at the door. They'd rather live with a familiar inner tyrant than step into the silence that comes after. Letting go of judgment. Silence is too open. It asks the terrifying question, now who are you? Here's the sorrowful beauty of the familiar pain loop. It's a loyal friend that has overstayed its welcome. It once kept you safe. It once made the world make sense. But now it's keeping you small. Breaking the loop doesn't happen through force. Force is still a kind of familiarity. It happens through honesty so clear it becomes impossible to unsee. You notice the pattern. You feel the cost. You stop romanticizing the bruises as proof you're alive. So ask yourself, what pain in your life is predictable? What suffering feels like home? Where are you confusing intensity with intimacy? Struggle with meaning, endurance with worth. Because when you finally step out of familiar pain, you meet the widest, quietest trap of all. The one that doesn't hurt loudly. It just steals your life in tiny installments. The trap of time debt. Time debt is what happens when you keep promising life you'll pay attention later. Not later as in a plan you truly mean, but later as a hiding place. Later when the chaos settles. Later when you're more confident. Later when the money is better. The body is fitter. The relationship is clearer. The world is safer. Later when you finally become the kind of person who deserves to live fully. And so the present becomes a hallway you walk through without looking. A waiting room where you scroll, cope, brace, prepare. The days are not terrible. They're just postponed. This trap is so quiet that it masquerades as maturity. You tell yourself you're being sensible. You're delaying gratification. You're building a foundation. All real things, sometimes. But time debt is different. It's not sacrifice for a purpose. It's sacrifice for the fantasy of a future where uncertainty no longer exists. Listen closely. That future never arrives, because certainty is not a destination. It's a mirage at the horizon that walks backward at your pace. When you finally get the promotion, you discover a new fear. When you finally move to the new city, you discover a new doubt. When you finally have time, your mind invents a new emergency. Time debt thrives on the belief that life begins after you solve life. But life is not a problem to solve. It is a weather to inhabit. The tragedy is not that we don't have enough time. The tragedy is that we don't notice the time we're in. We treat the present like a rough draft, and then one day we realize it was the final copy all along. A teacher of mine used to say, "Someday is not a day of the week." I didn't understand at first. I thought he meant act now in the motivational poster sense. But what he meant was subtler. If you keep placing your real life in an imaginary future, you create a kind of spiritual debt that can never be repaid. Because the currency is moments, and moments don't return. So, how do these 5 traps braid together? Identity cages you in who you were. Control convinces you the world must obey you. Validation makes you ask others for permission to be real. Familiar pain teaches you to choose the known over the true. And time debt whispers, later, until. Later becomes never. Each trap is a way of avoiding the rawness of being alive, avoiding change, avoiding uncertainty, avoiding the unbearable freedom of the present moment. What, then, is the way out? Not a grand escape plan, not an overnight awakening. The way out is the smallest, bravest movement, to notice, to stop mid-stride in the familiar city and look up, to feel where the threads are, to name them without hatred, to say, this is a trap, I don't have to live here. And then, gently, to step into a wider identity. I am not only what I've been. Step into humble agency. I'll do my part and release the rest. Step into self-belonging. I can witness myself. Step into unfamiliar peace. The unknown is not my enemy. Step into now. This moment is not a rehearsal. If you listen to your life long enough, it is always asking a single question in different costumes. Will you be here for it? Because the entire dance between opposites, fear and love, control and surrender, self and world, past and future, resolves into one quiet practice, presence, not as a technique, but as a loyalty to what is real, right here, before the mind. edits it into something safer. So let this land like a small stone in a still pond. The ripples are yours. You are not late. You are not broken. You are only human, waking up in the middle of your own days. And the strange mercy of waking up is this: even if it feels late, it is never too late to stop sleepwalking. It is never too late to live as if you mean it. Breathe. Look around. The city is here. You are here. And life quietly, patiently has been waiting for your eyes.